Hi everyone, my name is Solomon and I'm a PhD student from the University of the West of Scotland, and this is a CCSE conversation. Today we're going to be talking about COVID-19 in sport and culture in the Caribbean and the impact, survival and the new normal. So I have three guests today, and Dalton Mias. Dalton Mias is the founder and a host of the Drive Face podcast, the leading sport podcast in Caribbean. Hailing from Jamaica, he has over 15 years of experience in sports management. He is a sports administrator and consultant, columnist, researcher. He has been involved in sports journalism, events planning, and athletes development, as well as teaching at the University of the West Indies at the graduate and undergraduate level. I have Ken Williams. Ken Williams described himself as a Caribbean creative industrialist. He's currently a researcher at the Carnival Institute of Trinidad and Tobago, which has responsibility for documenting and preserving all aspects of Carnival. He he's also worked with a number of Carnival and creative businesses such as Carnival by Candy Jamaica International, Carnival Manager, and the Business of Carnival. Sorry if I don't pronounce that right. A graduate of Loughborough University. He's a graduate of Loughborough University with an MA in Media and Creative Industries. He's a co-host and producer of the Pop YouTube series on the creative industries in the Caribbean. And lastly, I have Cassell George. Cassell George is a multi-talent creative. He holds a BA in Entertainment and Cultural Enterprise Management and Music from the University of the West Indies. He's a distribution he's a distribution analyst at the Copyright Music Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, responsible for overseeing artist royalties. More so, he's the founder and management of the Parang band, Voix do Promessa. Yeah, that again. a traditional genre of music, a traditional genre of music from Trinidad. He also goes by the stage name Hekia and has two singles in soca and Afro soca genres, and
Yeah.
has sung back up vocals for a number of leading performers in his country. He's also the co-host and producer of the Pop YouTube series on the creative industries in Caribbean. So, so basically today we're just going to be discussing about the impact of COVID-19 in sports and culture in the Caribbean. So we'll be talking about the impacts, the survival, and how it's become the new normal in the Caribbean, basically. So I think basically the first question, I think the first discussion we just have to have is what is the current standing and position of sports and culture in the sector and of the sports and cultural sector in Caribbean? So yeah. So maybe I'll just leave Dalton to start with maybe sports, and then Kearn, you can come in as well. Then yeah.
Okay, well, I guess the only guy with no hair. I think it's been pretty tough. I think sport and the entertainment industry, cultural entertainment industry, have taken probably the biggest hit in the Caribbean for so many different reasons. And in Jamaica, where I am now, those are the two industries, or three, depending on how you want to split them, that haven't been restarted in any way at all. So while the church has started, church, the business of church is ongoing. Parliament, everything is happening except sports, culture, and entertainment. And I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more, but that has been the hardest part, I think, certainly for me and many other people across the Caribbean, because that has been the lifeblood of the region. And those areas are what have really made the region what it is. Yes, we have the academics, we have, all the people who have the big speeches, the politicians, etc. But whenever you travel across the world, it is the sportsmen and women, the entertainment and cultural ambassadors who are the ones who people identify with in a huge way. So if I should go with sport, my introduction is that it's been pretty tough. Not much has restarted in the Caribbean when it comes down to sports. And this is not just Jamaica or Trinidad, but certainly right across the length and breadth of the English-speaking Caribbean, and probably the Caribbean in totality. And I think that has made it tremendously difficult for the practitioners in, the athletes, the coaches, sports personnel, etc. Facilities that usually get finances through rental, So I'm sure the other panelists will go into some of the other things, and that will be my introduction in terms of what is happening now in the Caribbean. It's a bleak picture, and we're kind of hoping that we'll be a little bit more ready come the start of 2021. Certainly the first quarter may just be a little bit brighter.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that Dalton just said. And I think the thing is, particularly, in the Caribbean, where, carnivals and festivals are concerned, which is a huge part of it, that has, I don't want to say out of everything else, I feel like that has taken the biggest hit, because I remember previously in a discussion saying that the nature of how we, I guess, celebrate, right, is just, COVID loves it. Just the very, what I call, touchy-feely type people that we are, close contact, just, I guess, love and affection in terms of partying, whatever. I think the world knows how literally close in contact we are when it comes to enjoying ourselves. And because of that, the majority of carnivals in the Caribbean this year were cancelled. Only Trinidad, luckily, you have to say that at the start of the year, because of its positioning in the circuit, like, we got away, and there were still concerns at that point because Corona was now starting to spread. And, people were like, yo, this super spreader, this might be a super spreader. Don't know how Carnival came, and I don't want to say COVID was not here, because we really wouldn't know, but we definitely didn't see any, excess of numbers or anything like cases skyrocketed after. But every single other carnival got cancelled. And for those of you who are listening, the carnival industry, in particular in the Caribbean, is so interconnected amongst everyone. You have the same set of entertainers, artists, even if they're from different islands, practitioners as well. I myself tend to travel a lot to carnival for work purposes. So you have this movement of people who depend on this for the entire year. And after Trinidad, cut. At the moment, we absolutely have no idea when carnival is going to return to normal. Everyone is saying 2021. I don't know if I'm just not being positive, but even if things may come back a bit next year, I still don't anticipate 2021 being a fully functional what we expect. So that's my part with respect to our current standing. We still living in this sort of gray area, and out of any industry, we will be the absolute last to get back to normal.
So, Kearn, let me just, before George comes in, let me just, how Dalton spoke about how sports is something very important in the Caribbean and all. Like, I think it'd just be nice for you to speak about how Carnival itself is very important, how popular it is, how it's, it's a main, because it's important to know how, the effect of how that has affected the whole business, the whole cultural,
well, where do I even begin? There's a long historical connection to us and Carnival that deals like with slavery and emancipation and all of that, and it has now manifested what it is today. While some islands, I think, celebrate Carnival a little bit more than others, for the majority of us, it is this period of that so much look forward to, of just, I guess, being free, if to call it that, just of still being able to have this space. One of the topics people talk about here in Trinidad, jokingly, is though technically our carnival days are not holidays officially, it's basically a holiday.
Or they aren't?
They're officially, on the books, it is not listed as a public holiday, right?
Exactly.
But everyone keeps asking the question, are we going to go to work on Carnival Monday and the date set aside for next year? And it is going to be so strange. I think I will be fine. I've been in spaces like been out of the country and had to literally be in a class, probably with Dalton, and everyone is parading, right? And I'm in a classroom in another country. but it is going to be awkward for us Monday and Tuesday. Like, are we supposed to be on work today? What are we doing? Because we have been so, it is just this opportunity to this festive time and where carnival falls for us, which is usually February, March. We already, and Cassell, I'm sure will talk about that with his band. We already have a very festive Christmas season, which we are in, and carnival flows directly into it. Like people always say, carnival begins on Boxing Day officially, right? So we enter from Christmas. There is already this festivity. Artists and stuff would have before from like October, November, the seasonal musical carnival already is out for next year. So there's this whole build up with us leading to this point, and now it's like, like what are we doing? For some people, it's almost like if we can't exist, so it's a little bit strange functioning in this new normal because of how much just us being very festive as a people, Chimigwin in particular, are.
I mean, I think Dalton and Kearn hit the nail on the head. It's just as if the sports and entertainment industry, it's just stagnant. No one knows where to go or how we're going or how we're going to get there. But even just to add to what Kearn was saying, I mean, Carnival is, yes, it's a huge aspect of Trinidad and Tobago's culture. But outside of Carnival, there are so many other festivals, or how can I put it, other creative aspects of Trinidad and Tobago that happens outside of that Carnival period. Now, besides Carnival, there's what we call Parang. Parang music occurs predominantly coming down to the end of the year in Trinidad and Tobago, like around September, October. And that is where my band triumphs. Voces de Promesa, Solomon, that's the name of the Parang band. Voces de Promesa. And for us, it has been, I'm going to use the same word that Dalton used, it has been so bleak in terms of us getting performances where, in comparison to previous years, we were getting above 30, 40 performances within the last 3 months of the year. It has now gone down to 1 or 2 hopeful performances, because most of the times everybody say, yeah, we're going to do this parent thing. But when it's time for us to actually do the event, they call and say, our manager canceled because of whatever is happening with COVID. Nobody knows where to go, how to do it. Nobody trusts that people would obey the quarantine rules, so they don't want to put themselves out there to get themselves in trouble, So it has been really tough on that end. And even to add to that, besides Parang, we have so many other festivals. Look at Diwali, Kearn. Diwali in Trinidad and Tobago, it's normally a big festival. Like we have what we call the Nagar site, and there was no Nagar this year. And I remember that was tough for
No
a lot
traffic,
of
no Naga traffic.
no traffic, yeah. But that was still tough on a lot of Hindus who rely on that time or that period to actually run their business, because Nagar is like a big a one-stop shop for everything Hindu, or everything in East Indian, from clothing to food to whatever it is. You go to the Nagari site just to experience that, and there was nothing there. There was literally nothing there because of this entire COVID thing. So it's not just the carnival, but there's so many other festivals within Trinidad and Tobago that has been affected. Like, I don't even know if Harvest in Tobago was ongoing this year. I'm not sure if you heard anything about Harvest.
I think I saw like a sort of online harvest something
Harvest, yeah.
like, yeah, so yeah, even that.
Because Tobago Harvest is one of the biggest things. If you come to Trinidad
Yeah.
and Tobago, you have to go to Harvest in Tobago, because it's this big community event that brings so much just revenue for persons in Tobago, and just the experience of the Harvest in Tobago again is amazing. So COVID dealing with me. Is dealing, and it dealt with us for the past while, and it's still dealing with us right now.
That's actually interesting. So I think that's interesting because you know how in other parts, because for me, yeah, in my country, I mean, I've not been in a long time, but it's like everyone is actually doing what they have to do. People are going for. I've not seen people hold concerts basically, but I've seen artists hold virtual concerts like via YouTube,
Right.
have collaborate and partnership with YouTube for just for them to sing and have something to show to their fans, basically. But I think here in Scotland also, like in the UK, you don't have festivals, you don't have carnivals or anything going on. Like I think in 2018 when they had a Notting Hill Carnival, I think that was like that was when I started experiencing what carnival is. I started getting into the whole culture by virtue of saying Kearn. So yeah, I get to understand the importance of carnival in the Caribbeans, and but the thing is,
Diaspora, yeah.
yeah. But I think let's just move from that conversation to Dalton, where we'll talk about, because Dalton is actually, he's actually the expert when it comes to sports. So I don't want to talk about carnival and then forget about the other part, because I'm much more interested in sport as well. So like so Dalton, like what is, like, for example, is there any proper organization when it comes to the Caribbean Premier League? Something like so
Premier League
I don't like
cricket.
what's the Jamaican Premier League called?
Well, let me just go into there are different ones, and I'll get into that just a bit. But I wanted to just follow up for about 30 seconds on what the other two were talking about, in the sense that their expression of what carnival means to Trinidad and Tobago, and a lot of that has been spilling off into Jamaica, where Jamaica Carnival is starting to become this huge thing, and it's crucial because it provides employment, entertainment, etc., for people across the region. And for small states like ours, we depend so much on sport tourism or on tourism, right? Entertainment tourism, etc. So when Trinidad Carnival, which I was saving and preparing and ready for 2021, everything was in place now for Trinidad Carnival 2021, because this was my chance, which seemed like it's not going to happen. But so that was a big part of it. And so the effect of COVID on Carnival in Trinidad is an effect on the cultural everything of the Caribbean. It's not just Trinidad, it's just a Caribbean thing. And by it affecting, the Twin Island Republic, it does affect Jamaica, it affects Barbados, it affects every single part of the Caribbean, And so for the listeners, viewers, whoever, just to understand what that means for us in the region. And while we're competitive in sports and culture and entertainment, those are the three things that kind of pulls us together. And helps us to understand a little bit more about our history, and gets into more about who we are, why we do what we do, what makes us up, and helps us to understand more about our similarities. Now, sport is crucial in all of that, and for us in the region, West Indies cricket team not doing pretty well, but the cricket is part of what has pulled us together. And out of that, we now have what is called the Caribbean Premier League T20, which people in the Commonwealth will know of as a big sport for British Commonwealth. But that is entertainment. And it wasn't able to happen in the way it usually does. Of course, it was in Trinidad, which managed to host this in a very good way. But CPL is more than just cricket. CPL, so much of it is entertainment. Yeah. So much of it is employment for people in the region. The CPL usually put out a report every year, which I don't always agree with their figures, but it talks about how much employment it provides for people right across the region, and people look forward to it. So with that not happening is a huge hit. Now, Solomon, let me just explain a bit though, that, we're talking about it being bleak and the hit, etc. We're small states. The largest of the English-speaking Caribbean is Jamaica, with just about 2.6 million people. That's not a lot of people. So we depend a lot on tourism. We depend a lot on foreign direct investment, obviously coming in this way. And without that, remittances, etc., coming in, there's a big challenge now for us moving forward, and what will happen to many of these cultural products that we're talking about, many of these sporting events, many of these concerts, including what usually happen in Jamaica. Hey, we usually have a thing called Sunsplash, Sumfest, Sting. Sting is not anymore, but the other two went virtual, but it's not the same thing. These are usually hardcore dancehall artists rocking a crowd of thousands of people, and people coming all over the world to watch these events in Jamaica. So I mean, sound down by with a smile, but it is a reality for us who depends so much on those. And the last thing I'll say before the other presenters jump in is people in the sport and entertainment industry, cultural entertainment industry, tend to be consultants, entrepreneurs, self-employed, etc., or even if they are not 9 to 5 kind of people in the Caribbean, right? Because of how the industries are. So they don't have income that is going to come in no matter what. The income is dependent squarely on the number of hours that they can put in. And if you can get 30 band events in the Christmas period, is a huge dent on the pocket, you know. So the hope is that sports will continue. The last one on that though, I know I said the last one, so this is part B of the last one. A lot of the sporting events across the region are becoming sport and entertainment events. So both of them are intertwined. And I don't know if we'll talk about certain Jamaica, another thing that we have called Boys and Girls Athletic Championship, which is unlike anything you've ever seen anywhere in the entire world for high school track and field. Go into that more and what that means for us, I guess, after the other presenters.
So, Kearn, do you have anything to add to that? Because like you're nodding your head, you know, I think that's George's field, because George is not like a 9 to 5 per person, you know, he's an artist, you know, he's a performer. So like how has that affected you in a way? Because you're like you're in between.
Cassell, that you. I mean, we are 95 people still.
We are.
Anyway, I'll let Cassell answer that.
Yes,
Thankfully,
well,
let me just say first, thankfully,
okay.
Dalton is right. The majority of persons do like consultants, entrepreneurs, etc., or a lot of the other work that we get or money we make basically. Yeah? So I'm not seeing a notification about the time. Is from, you know, gigs and these type of things. As I said, thankfully, I still have a 9 to 5 in this sector, but I still do other things at the side, which have all been cut. You know, all my supplemental income that I get from working with carnivals and working with people and, like, you know, working with bands, etc. Like, there's nothing for me to do. You know, there's no carnival for me to plan. So even self, you know, I have a 9 to 5. There definitely has been, you know, I have had to calculate how I budget. I don't want to say thankfully in this case, the borders are closed in Trinidad still since March. Anybody listening, our borders have been closed since March. No indication on when it's going to be open. So that has also affected us, you know, no, you know, regional travel, that type of stuff also plays a big part in us moving. As much as we have island wars, right? Just like how you guys, Solomon, have Jollof wars, right?
Yeah.
We do travel amongst each other to experience, you know, sport and entertainment. You know, so COVID, the travel aspect of COVID as well has definitely given us a hit with that.
I love the fact that Dalton mentioned that, you know, the Caribbean is so intertwined with each other, because my 9 to 5, I am actually the distribution analyst at the Copyright Music Organization. And, you know, we are solely responsible for collecting license from events, whether it be sport, whether it be a music related event. And, you know, in CUT at the moment, we in a position where we are not too sure what we're going to distribute to our members next year. And I mean, we have some of the biggest members with us. So there's Marshall, he's a member of CUT. There's Bungie Garland. Ian Alvarez, I should say. There's Patrice Roberts. There's Destra Garcia. All of these persons are members of CUT. And because 2020 happened the way it did, we are not 100% sure what is going to happen come 2021, if we're going to have any royalties to distribute to them next year. Because this year was already hard, but everything that we distributed this year would have been based on the year before. So it would have been based on 2019. So now that 2020 happened, I'm not too sure how 2021 would look for the creatives in the music aspect. Because CPL, Dalton mentioned CPL, and CPL is one of CUT's biggest clients. because besides getting the man on the streets and giving them some form of employment, they also pay cut. And we use that money to pay members, and members would get what we call a direct distribution from that. We send people to go to CPL to collect all the data, all the musical data. And then that now is what we use to distribute whatever royalties based on how much of a CPL paid us. And I know in Jamaica, there's JCAP. I'm not too so I'm not too sure what is the situation in JCAP, and I'm 100%, but I believe that they might be in a similar position that we are in, because besides the Sumfest they did virtually, Dalton, like what else did they do? Was any other entity paying GCAP for the use of music? What are they going to distribute to their members come 2021? And that is a question I wait to be answered when 2021 comes in. And the most I could hope that something happens and there's a carnival. Well, I think in Trinidad, it's interesting to see that we have some of the big carnival promoters coming together to do something for 2021. Like, we don't know what yet is in store, but I'm hearing that something is going to happen, to the point where they're telling the employees by me at CUT that, yo, we're going full into carnival mode come December the 20th. So as I said, I wait to see what happens in that regard.
Solomon, I'm not an expert on carnival, trust me. These guys are with at it. But one thing I can also say from the Jamaican experience is it's been so challenging, where Jamaica Carnival in Jamaica was supposed to be in April of this year. They postponed it to October.
Yep.
And they have now postponed it to next year. Now, let me just tell you what that means. Persons like ourselves who made down payment for respective bands, etc., have not been able to get any reimbursement, refund, etc. And there are persons who are saying, no, but we need to get refund. Here's the challenge, Solomon. Most of these bands cannot do a refund because they would have invested this money in equipment, in trucks, in just so many things.
Costumes
and it's
were
not
produced.
it's costumes have been produced. And the industry, while being large, is not so huge where these entrepreneurs can take that kind of a hit. And so you find these not necessarily legal wranglings, because people kind of understand, but it shows you the challenge that we have. No, it has been postponed to 2021, but who knows what will happen in 2021.
Exactly. So like I was saying, so basically in Nigeria, so there is no government policies. So artists are left to fend for themselves. There is no guidance or rules. Everyone is just like, okay, you know what? You want to hold this festival or you want to host this party, then create your measures for yourself. So is there like, but I think what you guys have said, there is still some sort of government lockdown when it comes to hosting carnivals and things like that. So what are the things? Is there any potential to say, okay, the government is going to bring serious measures that will allow carnival come back up again?
Okay, so let me just take it like from two different sides with respect to policies and even just I would say the reality. So I mean, I work in state carnival, right? So we have a government agency which oversees carnival here, that's supposed to manage it. With everything with COVID, when the new financial year for the government was presented back in September, I think it was, and everybody got cut across the board. So our cut, let's just say, I think if they usually give us about 150 million TT for carnival, I think we got like 30 million, right? Which is just really like for operational cost to pay me at the end of the month, right? And others. And right now, what Cassell mentioned, that we have some other guys like in private sector carnival who are planning something. I have been in constant meetings for the last couple of days of things potentially for carnival next year, of what we could do with restrictions and that type of thing. And while I still await any possible green lights, I am still concerned about we're submitting proposals, etc. But if we had this huge cut, I'm really wondering where's the money even coming from to even do something, because it was cut out, right? So there's that on that side, that even if the government may begin to open things back, they may not be able to fund things for carnival as before. And it would be the same thing with private sectors, as we understand with carnival bans, etc., as Dalton mentioned. Those who have already taken a hit, who are absorbing cost and figuring it out in terms of presenting something, there will be challenges to execute whatever, because there is lack of money coming in, and you still have issues in still landing sponsorship and whatever, which carnival also heavily depends on, right? So even so, we do have something, there's going to be restrictions financially, right? And persons individually will also have financial restrictions based on what has happened, people losing their jobs, etc. Um, for us here, the government, again, our borders have been closed. I think for the most part, we have been very, you know, all these things in place, like legislation, for instance, we cannot go out in public without wearing masks. You can't be charged for that, right? I don't think all countries are doing that. So things like that we have put in place to try to curb restrictions. There is still sometimes, to me, this uncertainty. I found it interesting how Dalton mentioned in the beginning that the business of church resumed, where in some spaces you could kind of gather, but then in others it's kind of like no, right? How we have our issues now, like what we call with the bars here. If I'm not mistaken, Cassell, bars still are not open, open, but like you could go to a bar, but then come outside and then still gather in five and drink. You understand? So it's very kind of confusing sometimes. Like, what is the, is all this gray line still? I think what they try to do, other major restaurants, let's say like TGI Fridays, etc., they now cannot sell alcohol. So it's almost as if, you could gather there, and they're kind of trying to compensate with the bars. Okay, we would like to sell alcohol because alcohol means, you're kind of losing yourself, and you might probably drop your mask and you might spread corona. So there's this kind of gray area with respect to it. So I think that's our positioning. Like, we have some policies in place to help us, and I think that has helped us, but there is still a lot of gray areas with respect to it.
Well, one of the things that I think you should have mentioned was that the social norm in Trinidad is, and I mean, I don't know, I can only speak for Trinidad and Tobago, but I mean, yes, the policies are put in place, and they are in place for a reason, and that is because of the social norm in Trinidad and Tobago. So, as Kearn said, the restaurants are open, but in some cases, at a point in time, they were not allowed to sell any alcoholic beverages.
Mhm.
And that was because I guess the government felt as if Trinidadians, we are so happy-go-lucky, in a lack of a better term, that if you were to consume alcohol, you understand, we start to know
We get tested.
whatever regulations were put in place to safeguard ourselves. So yes, the policies on one end, it makes sense, but it in some other cases it's as if is it really needed? Because as you said, a church is open for business. It's happening whether or not people like it. But then when we go back to now restaurants and all these different places that they are not allowed to sell alcohol, it's like, okay, so then how do we expect persons to want to go there to actually? It's not just about eating food and the ambience. Trinidadians like to go to drink. That's we like
I
to
went
drink.
to a restaurant last week. I can't expecting people, and nobody really, because they
Yeah,
can't come and drink.
Can come and drink. Yeah.
So nobody's going anywhere.
Nobody going anywhere. No. People would mostly buy their own drinks, and they prefer to drink at home because they'd rather not go out there and venture to get drunk, to get charged for nothing. You understand?
That's so for the other thing, like I think it's because I think basically everywhere around the world countries have similar issues with, you can only open places of hospitalities where you can't sell a particular product or things like that. But I think I just want to know, like, in terms of looking at, because we've been talking about carnivals and things and the whole entertainment industries and how sports and entertainment is mixed, in the Caribbean. But like in terms of looking at what, like, in terms of sports in
Mhm.
general, what measures do you think? What measures do you think? Because do you think can be put in place for things to come back? Or because, for example, let me use the NBA for example, as an example. So you see how the basketball, they actually formed like a bubble, and there were things put in place to, so in terms of sports in particular, what do you think? Because like you mentioned, sport is almost dead right now because
Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me? I think I lost.
Yeah, yeah.
We're hearing.
I don't know
wait,
if
can you
it's
guys
my
hear me as
internet.
well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Alright.
I don't know. Somebody chipped out or I chipped out. No, that's a very good question. So currently, let me just quickly on currently, we are still under what is called the Disaster Risk Management Act order, sorry, which is basically telling us where we can go, when we can go, what we can't go. The borders are reopened, unlike Trinidad or some of the other places, but we have different types of curfews, when you can leave your house, etc., and you can be locked up and charged, etc. So we have those. The Minister of Health has said that he doesn't see any sport happening for the rest of the year, which says a lot. We were expecting the Premier League football competition to start in November. That didn't happen. And we saw no high school sporting event, no physical education activities managed to happen either during this period. So that's where we are. In terms of moving forward, I think we can keep some events. I think track and field tried something which worked out. It was a small thing of having no fans in the stadium, some strict protocols, and in the lanes you didn't have more than, say, about 4 persons running. So it's someone in a lane, then there's a gap, then there's another person, there's a gap, etc., etc. So it kind of space people out. There's no hugging, there's no celebrating, etc. So that's easier for track and field and swimming because they are what are called individual sports. And tennis and racket sports can do that. Football is a little bit more dynamic. So I think they can do something similar where you have the competitions, have strict testing protocols, sorry. It's hard to do a bubble in a Caribbean space because we don't have that kind of a money. And even in European football, there's no longer any bubble per se. It's just that persons aren't allowed to go into certain spaces. Discipline would be an issue for us here in Jamaica, as well as everywhere else in the Caribbean. So you may expect that the cases they're going to be a spread within the football or sporting circle if you begin. So that's the first admittance that there's a challenge there. But if you don't have the sport, Solomon, you're going to have a bigger challenge. And what do I mean by that is in the Caribbean and in Jamaica, certainly, a lot of the players who play football predominantly, let me say it another way. Football tend to be a sport of the lower class. Now, let me just be very careful in that. I'm not suggesting only lower class people play football, but it's one of the easiest sports to play. You just need a ball. Sometimes you don't even need a ball. You just need something to kick. So you find a lot of the persons from the lower class who gravitate towards it much quickly or quicker than, say, a cricket, which you have to spend a lot of money on that. So without that, you may find a lot of those persons not having anything to do and get in some kind of trouble. Crime and violence is prevalent in Jamaica. Everybody know this, and it's creeping up in Trinidad and Tobago way more than we want it to, and even in Barbados, we're hearing some of those. So sport in itself is absolutely crucial to prevent some of these. I was in a forum yesterday about sport and peace and what sport means for development. There's Sport and Development in Trinidad and Tobago. That's an organization that looks into these kind of stuff. So it's a long-winded way of answering your question, Solomon, but it is really to get the sport going in small ways, in communities, etc. Try to have a lot of protocols around it, and where there are breaches, such as in Premier League, where the guy from Aston Villa, Grealish, and a few others have been sanctioned. So you sanction these players financially and otherwise, so that is how you're going to get them to comply. Netball has started something. The Jamaica netball team will be traveling to England to play a competition at the beginning of January, but then it's hard to train, you know. Same thing for the football team that went off to Saudi Arabia, had some cases there in the squad, you know. So I think those are some of the challenges, but I think in moving forward, we have to find unique ways of having these events happening, so that we can, one, they can earn, but mentally we can get our people being active and being in the kind of events that they've been used to in a healthy way. I'm not suggesting breaking of protocols, and I'm not a health expert. I'm nowhere close to that.
Yeah, exactly, because like I think you made mention, you've spoken about a lot of points, but like I think one issue that keeps coming to my head is, I think it's the same for every developing countries, you know, let me just say Commonwealth countries as well. For example, you know, like the Premier League, the English Premier League, maybe the NBA, these whole organizations have lots of money to take care of their players, you know, go through testing, COVID protocols, things like that. But like, I don't know, I know the Nigerian Premier League, for example, financially, I know that they're struggling, and I know that, okay, they're back up now playing and things like that, but I've not really looked at one measures.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because I mean, usually we usually don't have fans even in normal Premier League games.
Yeah.
There are no lots of fans and things like that. So is that the case for Trinidad? And financially, like, I don't know, the football FA in Jamaica, and the football FA in Jamaica, like how well organized is the sports in is football or other sports in the first place?
Yeah.
Then
well, sport in the region is by and large semi-professional, right? Including Trinidad and Jamaica. Just recently, though, in Jamaica, they have formed a company that is trying to structure the Premier League in Jamaica, and we expect a lot from that company, because you don't want the JFF or the TTFA really running football. That doesn't spell anything, because these organizations are problematic in some instances, and let's just put it lightly because other persons will be listening to this. But so, for example, quickly, Solomon, the TTFA has been in this long run battle with the FIFA. They were even suspended at one point. They have now been reinstated. Well, that's a long story, and this was all happening during COVID. So they need that competition, because, you know, without it, there will be challenges. They're really trying to structure, they're really trying to get these competitions to be a little bit better in terms of semi-pro meaning that people are paid, but it's not their 9 to 5. And so football and track and field are the two main ones in Jamaica where people earn a living, or can earn a living in terms of sports, you know, full-time or otherwise, meaning that in football they're paid. In track and field, people have contracts, etc. And I probably will go into that later, though, in terms of how that has been affected, what that means. And these contracts mean apparel sponsors, apparel contracts, you know, so an athlete may have a contract with Nike, and that contract may value, if an average, probably 100,000 US for an average 100-meter athlete, or 80,000. Let's just put it at 80,000 US. And without any competition, the sponsor may take back some of that. So, for example, you know, I know one apparel sponsor has put on a strict 15% cut on all the retainer monies that they would have been giving to athletes, etc. So if they were getting $100,000, your guys' math are better than mine. So 15% of that, you can imagine what that is. And the same thing, you know, for others that have just said, well, athletes need to run 8 events. If you don't run 8, well, we're doing a 50% cut. You know, so those are some of the things that are affecting athletes across the region, and certainly in Jamaica. So there's some kind of a structure in some areas, but other areas are really just amateur sports.
That was interesting. But I think we're getting to the end of the conversation. But what I just want to ask is, you know, like right now with everything we are talking about, is like, for me, I feel, and I think is the way everyone say that COVID-19 is here to stay, even with the vaccine, which gives an atom of hope. But like looking at this new normal right now, I just want everyone to talk about like in their various aspects and areas of fields like entertainment, sports. What? How do you think we can survive this? How do you think the entertainment industry and the sport industry? How do you think you guys can survive this? How do you think? Okay. So who wants to go first? Is it Kearn or is it Cassell or is it Dalton? Because everyone's just like, okay. Yeah.
How are we going to survive this? I mean, this part of me just wants to be like, well, vaccine nearly needs to come back. For us to survive. Because people I think there's only so much we can do, right? I was supposed to mention earlier, and even this is like I guess government measures. Our government has, fortunately, even it hasn't been much. They have been given grants to creatives who have lost for the past couple months. That has still been ongoing. So at least they're giving you a little something. But you know, you get your one check and that's it. That one check, I'm sure, is consumed immediately. You know, there's only so much that could be done with, again, how we experience things, how we celebrate culture, uh everything with this online stuff. Yes, we're entertained in the interim, but until we go back to, I guess, what things were before, um we will never earn in these settings what we were earning before. I do not see us finding this new solution and generating what we would, the type of wealth or so that we were generating before, if we don't start to get back to what was. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't have a carnival that is socially distanced. You know, like it's just
Exactly,
it is just impossible. You know,
Yeah.
there are many of those who have mixed feelings even regarding some type of online staging. You know, I've had people tell me in the last 2 days, like, yo, if you guys doing anything online, like, let miss me, you know? Because it's like I'm just teasing people, I'm entertained, and then what? You know? Um, so for me, I think, with this new normal, um COVID is here to stay, and I think we have started to adapt to it. But until everything goes back to normal, as I say, we would not generate what we were generating before. And I anticipate other people or other businesses to eventually fade away. Carnival is a type of thing. Let's just use carnival bands, for instance, which are the ones who do the production and execute the road experience. Typically, we have very few carnival bands all around the world who have these huge lifespans. They may be very popular in a decade or something like that, and that's just the nature of the game. Whether it is management changes, etc., you make your money for 10 years, whatever. If you make 10 years, there's this kind of rule in carnival about, if you make a 5-year mark, you've done well, because it's so hard to even make profits in carnival. As much as people think there's all this money coming in immediately, it is so hard to make profits. So they already have this lifespan. So if we don't get back to that, I think eventually you would just see more um things being faded away. People would pivot their business. They may just find other ways to earn, but that product that they had really crafted on a brand would eventually, unfortunately, die.
Well, Kieran, which is the point that I actually wanted to jump on, because if it's one thing that COVID brought out in people, is the fact that we became more creative in the manner in which we could deliver a performance or deliver a concert, or and kudos to those who utilized that platform to do something. But the answer as it stands now, Solomon, we need a vaccine. We need something to stop the spread of COVID. Because
Yeah.
if we look at it from primary and secondary, we have the primary persons, the main person, performer. Um, they could find means or ways to generate money virtually. But the sound man, the cameraman, the vendor on the street around the corner, the tent man, the chairman, these people, and they have nowhere to go, nowhere to earn any kind of income, because what they were accustomed to when COVID started. So for them to benefit, so what I determine them as secondary earners in this case. They are the ones who would come at the back there that would earn something because of this main event happening. And because they can't make any kind of earning at this point in time, the only thing that we could really solely depend on is for a vaccine to come and ensure that everyone has a vaccine for any kind of event or any even sporting event to even think about starting back anytime soon. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I echo those sentiments. I think anything short of a vaccine is going to be a challenge. For me, I think the new normal is going to be different. I think what we know as life in the Caribbean in terms of sport and entertainment is going to be different. There are going to be some changes. I'm not too sure what it will look like, to be honest with you. But I definitely know that there's a lot of issues that we'll have to face. Obviously, what has been happening is that people have turned to virtual everything, literally and figuratively. So we now have the TikToks, we have the more webinars, we have more podcasts being developed. And some of these can be monetized, some are tricky to be monetized. So people are trying all different things. Kes had a party, and a lot of us in the Caribbean tuned into YouTube just to catch a bit of that. Yeah, so there's the entertainment part of it. The earning part may be a challenge later. How do we earn from all of these? Because at the end of the day, yes, you're cultivating your talent, you're curating your talent. Yes, you're honing your skills, but how do you generate income from it is going to be the challenge. I don't know the full answer for that. What I do know, though, is that we will have to try and have more events. Put it this way, Solomon, guys, we couldn't even have an Olympic Games in 2020. That's huge for sport. 2021 is not in doubt, but already we're talking about, we want people to take the vaccines, but some people are anti-vaxxers, so there's going to be a challenge there because you can't force athletes to take vaccines because of WADA code. And so you have that aspect of it. Fans may not be allowed to go to the games, or they may have to take vaccines. No, where the challenge for a lot of people is people sell tickets to go to these games from the Caribbean. People sell packages for these games from the Caribbean, because as you know, for the Olympic Games, a huge part of that is track and field, where yes, Jamaica dominates, but certainly the Caribbean is a big part of that, and people go for that kind of excitement, so we have that. Without the vaccine, we're going to have a problem, or if the figures don't come down, we're going to be having challenges, because if you hear what Kearn and Cassell just said, is that the borders in Trinidad and Tobago is still closed. And that's the same thing for some countries. Now, what does that mean? Is that it means some Trinis may worry about traveling to try and compete to qualify for the Olympic Games, because qualifiers had to be paused. Because if they travel to try and qualify, they may not be able to return to the Twin Island Republic, and that becomes a problem for them financially and otherwise. And the same thing is happening where people have to quarantine, etc. So those are some of the big issues. How do we move forward? It's just really taking it in stages and seeing how we can help each other, how the Caribbean governments can help. I'm not too optimistic about that, because we have struggled to even make a CARICOM or a CSM or even an e-workout in terms financially or otherwise. So I'm not too hopeful for that. Different countries are trying different things, but I'm not too sure. But I'm sure, though, that we have been so innovative across the region that we're going to figure out different ways of using these online and virtual platforms to generate some kind of income using sports, whether it is event, whether it's live streaming, whatever it is. We'll figure out ways. What that is, I'm not sure yet, Solomon. Probably for your next project, I'll be able to give you more concrete things as it relates to sports.
Thank you, thank you guys. You guys have actually like answered most of the questions. It's not easy because like we can't see the future. We don't know what's going to happen. We can only work with what we have. And I think one thing that is clear from this conversation is the fact that COVID has brought the creativity out of us. Like everyone is now trying to be more creative in terms of how to make their businesses work, how to make their creative their craft work, and it's like Dilson said, I think usually these days what keeps me busy is going to YouTube and trying to listen to some live events. I think in America, like the Versus Battle, for example, is an example of creativity, how the old school hip hop music and bringing back the old school days for everyone to just enjoy music again. So I think one thing that COVID has brought, like everyone have said, is the fact that we are now creative, more creative than ever. But the problem here is how is everyone going to monetize and how will everyone start to live off of this again. So yeah, thank you guys very much for this conversation. It's been really enlightening, and I hope the audience enjoyed this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
No
Yeah.
problem. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.